This week on RSBANDB Update, the Completionist capes get their day in the sun with a ninja strike. The changes are good, but raise questions for the future of RuneScape's endgame. Factoring in polls, different playstyles, and history, we ask, is there any consistency in Comp? This is RSBANDB Update, episode 931, recorded Thursday, April 20th, 2023, completing Comp. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Tanis, welcome back.
Thank you, Shane.
Also joining us here this week to talk about Comp and polls, the return of polls to RuneScape, is Pernasius.
G'day, g'day. Excited about this one.
And Zerdones.
Hi there. Glad to be back.
I figured it would be good to have you guys both on because Pernasius has been a fan of the Comp Cape rework ever since that first popped up in 2019, and we're getting to the point where we need to have a serious discussion about what's happening with Comp. And Zerdones, you're here because you, of course, have the Master Quest Cape, you have the Globetrotter outfit, and have done clues, so you have a stake in the poll questions that have come up, where Tanis and I are kind of just out of the on the edges, on the periphery on this one. I can speak to Reaper Crew and whatnot, but we're going to go through the Comp update this week, the Comp Ninja Strike as it's called, and talk about the polls, and then kind of look back at one of the monthly bits that we did last year and say, well, okay, we're going to pick the discussion up here. This is what we said in part of this, and well, maybe it's time to have a wider discussion on what Comp is, and that's what you can expect for the bulk of this week's episode of Update. And if you want to follow along with this, we do have full show notes available at update.show. You can find us in-game at our friends chat BitsBytes. We also have a Discord at rsbnb.com/discord. I'm at Shane12088 in-game. Tanis can be found at Tanis79, and Pernasius and Zerdones. We're all keeping it easy this week. Pernasius and Zerdones. Simple as 1, 2, 3.
Nice and easy. No 1, 2, 3s, no numbers.
Right? I guess that made it sound like you guys had 1, 2, 3 at the end of your name.
No numbers and usernames. Well, I sort of have one in mind, but...
that's fine. All right, Tanis, where do we land with this? Because I know we kind of had a bit of a discussion about this when this was first proposed. You're not that much of a Comp person. Do these changes sway you at all to move towards Comp, or are you just still fixated on the 120 all?
Yeah, I mean, we're focused. I don't feel like I can say a whole lot, or should say a whole lot, since it is really not something I can go for. That being said, I've heard a diverse there's a lot of diverse opinions out there, and I almost can, because I'm not really going for it, I can almost see some merit in a lot of different positions.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the poll speaks to that as well. But before we go into the changes, Zerdones, Pernasius, you guys have any thoughts on Comp in general before we begin?
No, I mean, when they did these changes, I logged in and everything that was there that they added, I already had anyway, so I didn't need to do anything. I like what they've done. I think, I think there should be more requirements on these type of elite style capes. Maybe not so much on Comp, but certainly on trim Comp. I think they should definitely have those. The one thing I was excited about, of course, was the removal of penance to the king, because that is to try and find groups. I'm not big on group content trying to find other people, but it is part of the game, so we have to do it. But I was sort of happy with that one.
All right, how about you, Zerdones?
Yeah, I mean, if you want my detailed thoughts, refer back to the last time I was on the show. We talked about it in great detail. But in general, I mean, it's nice to see Comp get some love, see Comp getting some attention. It sometimes feels like it's a thing that a lot of developers forget about, because it is fairly often that you'll see an update come out and there's just nothing added to comp or trim, or the requirements don't really make a lot of sense, like the Garden of Carid update, for instance.
Yeah.
So I think fixing that stuff is nice.
And that's a perfect point to jump in onto. But, I'm just Googling to pull up some of the names of these achievements, and I Googled slide to the left, and I got a first result was
slide to the right.
was the cha-cha slide dance by DJ Casper.
You mean you Google slide to the left and you don't get Rocky Horror?
No.
What have you done to your Google algorithm? That is...
No, it's all cha-cha slide.
But that was why, because that's a step to the left and a jump to the right.
All I know is it's a wedding song.
Okay.
You can do it when you're about 3 drinks deep to a reception.
That's the best time to do it.
Well, I'm sure,
exactly.
I'm sure that's not what the folks were expecting when they turned on this episode of Update. But
we've given it to a music podcast.
So the first thing is
a Shane's Google podcast.
Yeah. First things first, a Druid's sidekick has been removed from comp and been removed to trim, and that was buying the entire store out. Yes, good. This should have been on trim. This should have been on trim.
One, definitely. Yeah.
So I was pleased about that, and I'm going to kind of jump around the list here because they also added Power Planter 2 to comp, which is a new achievement which is required by unlocking Plant Power Tier 4 in the Garden of Carid. And they also added Tiers of Treasure, which is complete one of every tier of Clue Scroll. And I had to work really hard here to make sure it was Power Planter, not Flower Planter like it was on the actual episode. Because that has just worked its way into my head as what I call those unlocks.
Right, I remember that old plowboy Shane. Remember?
Yeah, plowing the fields with the seed upgrades.
Yes, but as someone who loves doing clues, I'm glad they added a few of the achievements to it.
Yeah, and the best part is
left, which is just complete a puzzle. They're not hard ones, but it's something that you do and need to know how to do.
And the best part is these are grandfathered in because they were already in the achievement system going back to 2018 with the Clue Scroll update.
Yes, correct.
And I was worried about that when I saw they were going to add these because it was like, are you going to make me, when this update comes out, go get a Clue Scroll that has each one of these challenges in them to recomp? But no, they had them in there already. So that made me feel really good. And interestingly enough, on my comp cape, previously the only thing that was missing on comp was the Slayer stuff from last week because everything else was up to date. But the one achievement I did not have, in addition to that, after this week's update, was Gaps, Traps, and Laps, which was added to comp this week.
Wait, hold on. Say that again.
Gaps, Traps, and Laps complete a lap on each agility course.
No, it's not from the adult dancing thing. Tennis.
Okay.
Sorry, what?
It sounds like something from a gentleman's club.
Yeah, it just sounds dirty.
Well, this was added November 2018. Oh, I think I can see where and why you say that.
I bet it's the werewolf skull ball you hadn't done, right?
No, it's actually all of them because I got 99 agility before this achievement came in. And the only one I had done was Hetz Oasis, Heffin, and the Wilderness one.
Fair enough.
So I have to go do some agility at some point for this one. Also, I know this was something we were discussing on last week's show, I think, with Thaxi. His achievement list for comp also involved the herb stuff, and the update this week effectively recomped him minus the Slayer stuff. So that's what this update is doing, at least on the comp side. It's actually something that's helping people out in terms of making the cape easier to get. I think if you already had comp And I think most of these other comp ones they added could have been knocked out in less than a day session worth. So
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty
at
easy.
the end of the day, it's just kind of balancing, right?
yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think it gets more interesting when we move on to the trim side here, because they removed Penance to the King, like you said. Walk on the Wieldy side 3. Thank God they removed that.
See, I didn't mind that one.
Really?
Yeah.
100 flash events.
I'm about to hit 500 flash events, so...
Yeah, I mean, Bloodwood counts for 3, Infernal Star counts for 2.
And I try and do those 2 daily.
The thing I didn't like about this achievement was that it's incredibly time sensitive to that you have to, in effect, make sure that you're free at the top of the hour to do this one. And I might have said this when it was first announced that this was going to be removed, and I think the discussion on that was there's other things in trim that are kind of like that, but I don't know, it just felt like it felt too tedious and cumbersome, so I'm glad they removed that one.
It's not a once a day thing though, it's every hour on the hour, so I mean, okay, you've got to do 100, but as we said, the Evil Bloodwood tree is 3, the Infernal Stars 2, it's sort of time gated, but not really. I mean, it is time gated. It is time gated, but I mean, it's not like the effigy one where it takes you 6 months to do if you have sort of the monthly reset.
Oh, we have some interesting news on that one.
That'll be a good topic down there.
After when we get there. Yeah. They also added Get Tooled Up, My Gobi Homies, Conquered Everyone's Heart, a Druid's Sidekick, which we just talked about, Build Them All, which is a new one requiring you to build every hidey hole, not stuff them. Important distinction, I think, because stuffing the hidey holes can be pretty expensive.
That tripped me up, because I thought, when I read the proposal initially, I thought they were suggesting putting this one on comp and stuffing them on trim. And to me, that makes more sense.
Yep. I would have done it that way.
Yeah, but this is just build them, so it's not too bad.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy.
We also have a Draught Includer, acquire every invention blueprint. That's interesting. I mean, you get the ones as you level up, but there's also the tech tree ones, which require a bit of work along the way.
And it also, I believe, includes the ones from the Elite Dungeon Shop.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I must have bought those. I don't remember buying those, because I've got that. Let me just double check that.
Yeah. We also have Granny's Favorite Farmer, acquire max reputation within the Farming Guild. And Reliquary, unlock all relic powers. That's something I'll be having to do, because I actually never made the luck enhancing ones. Believe it or not.
I camp the T4 luck one permanently. Okay. I put that on. I've never taken it off.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. Though, what ring do you normally wear then?
Depends what I'm doing. Usually,
I can understand with combat.
Well, yeah, like if I'm skilling, it'll generally be the Ring of Whispers or the Pontifex Ring. Right. If it's combat, I rotate between Ring of Death. What's the new Matriarch's Ring? The All-Style Ring.
It's on the top of my head. I can't pull it out.
Berserker's Ring, I think.
Okay. Scrolling in the Deep. Unlock all player-owned port scrolls. Grace period on this one until April 2024.
Yeah, because that one
they give you a year to do that. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Sword of Crystalline. This is a new one, which is further expansion of the Prif title achievement. I actually looked this one up, and this one's actually quite expansive. When you look at it, it includes, of course, all of the clan titles, but in addition to that, it includes the Elven, the Dark Elf, of Tardiad, Lorehound, Statuesque, which is completing the statue of Rhiannon, of the Naragi, Lord of the Weight, and the Mourner and the Famous. So it's effectively, hey, you're going to do this and you're going to complete Prif, which I think I think this is the culmination. This one is the culmination of what a perfect trim requirement looks like, if I was going to say
and that's an interesting one, because I just had a look, and I need the Elven Lord of the Weight, Dark Elf, and the Mourner, and I've completed Prif, so I'll have to go and look at what they are.
Well,
yeah, a lot of them are just sort of like take random items to random NPCs.
Yeah, like the Mourner is...
okay.
Like the Mourner is wear the full Mourner outfit and talk to Lady Ithil.
Okay. So
one
they're
of them
just
is
those
like,
little... Okay, yeah, no, I like those type of things. They're fun.
one of them is like wear the Ithil cape and talk to Saren, or not the Ithil, the Yorvith cape and talk to Saren.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then there's another one, wear the Heaven cape and rest. And atop the Tower of Voices, that's Lord of the Weight. Of the Naragi is planting a crystal acorn. Lorehound is all the Memoriam crystals, which I think so many of us did when Proof Patch 2 first came out. But it's nice seeing all these teed up together like that. So I'm a fan of that one.
These are the type of things that I love on Trim. Just those little, you finish the game, you want something just fun and interesting to do. So, hey, I can just put this outfit on, go talk to this person, and unlock a achievement. They're fun little ones. The long ones, for a lot of people, I don't mind them, but I understand for a lot of people they can be painful. But when you've got little 5-minute tasks, I think they're great, and sort of just adds that little bit more to your sort of lore knowledge.
Yeah,
because they generally have a little a little chat to say and give you a little bit of information about something.
Then we also have the Golden Crocodile Hunter, which is to unlock everything from Dundee's shop, which I think a lot of us did when Hetz Oasis came out. So
they removed that one.
Well, this one used to be on Comp.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, it did. Right.
Yeah. When Hetz Oasis launched, this was the Comp rack.
Yes.
You had to get everything. So now they've changed it, and that's actually the next thing on the list is they removed the last cosmetic from the shop from Comp. So now to Comp, you have to get everything up to the cosmetic, and then for Trim, you just have to get that last cosmetic.
Right. Okay.
Which I think is basically, it's like another 1,000, I think. I can't remember how much more it is. It's a fair bit more. I know that.
All right. Also, remove the Golden Crocodile cosmetic upgrade as a requirement of the Crocodile Hunter, so that goes exactly where you were. Renamed Power Planter to Power Planter 1, not Power Planters. And Trouble Brewing and the Distillery Hilarity music tracks now unlock in the lobby for Trouble Brewing, so you don't actually need to complete the game.
Again, great.
You never had to complete the game. You just had to start the game.
You had to start the game.
Or one out for Trouble Brewing.
Which really isn't a problem if you're a member of Clan Quest, I must say, because we go there somewhat often.
Well, it also, like, if you're in a clan or guesting in a clan, if you call out and say, hey, I need the tracks, can I get 5 people to come Trouble Brewing with me? These are good. You'll get people. Like, I know I always try to make myself available.
Yeah, and a lot of people need the anyway. So if someone else is doing it, I'll jump on because I need that as well. We used to do it like every second or third month in my old clan. We used to sort of do those track unlock things. So
Walk on the Wildy Side 1 now requires 1 flash event rather than 4 to be completed. Which, I mean that's fine, I guess, because that just gets you in right away to doing that quest rather than having to wait an hour from when you started Civil War 2. So, and then I think this is the biggest news out of this patch note, aside from the actual comp changes. Added an alternative method to complete following in the footsteps, which is the Vicindatha's Effigy Incubator research. And with this, Vicindathus can now accelerate his research on effigies using your Anachronia resources. This will cost 50,000 base camp resources of each type, so 300,000 total, and this unlocks you 1 chapter. To do this, you must have completed Extinction.
Yep. I think that's a good, because, I mean, once you've sort of completed the base camp anyway, those resources are worthless, so it gives sort of another use to while you're going.
Yeah,
there is Dream of Aya, but once you're going for Master Quest, once you have that lore unlocked. Again, it's also pretty
That's right.
useless.
Yeah, no, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about because it took me a while.
The number
to get
one
Dream
use
Aya
of
that.
Dream of Aya that I heard following, the lore drops and whatnot and Master Quest was going there and just stocking up XP as much as you can, and then saving it to burn on construction or crafting for whenever double XP comes around.
They're good for yak tracks too. I try to stock up fletching for yak track tasks.
Okay.
And of course, if you're iron, then it's a good way to get dinosaurs.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me of that, rather than just burning proteins for fletching yak track. Thank you.
I'm looking for every AFK fletching method that gives that chance I can find. I want that pet, man. I want that pet.
All right, fair. So those are the comp changes this week, and I feel like we reached a good point with this. I feel like everybody I'm seeing with this is generally happy, and that the changes made were smart changes, and in effect right now help comp and trim.
Yep.
I think we're good, and we could stop here, right? But
no,
I think where we go next on comp and trim opens the door to the comp cape rework, that can of worms that's not going to be able to be put back. And we go to the polls next on this, and it's important to note that these polls are advisory polls only that you can vote for in game on this, and
which I think is the way polls should be done.
Go ahead, Sir Jones.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just saying we're not old school. This is not guaranteed content. There is no, if it passes 76% or whatever it is, then this will definitely be implemented.
Yeah. Now, I feel like we are potentially walking into a trap here by polling these, and if an option wins and then they go for the opposite path, I feel like there's going to be a complete lack of credibility in any polls going forward on this, even though they do say that they are advisory on here. And I don't know what the ultimate outcome of this is going to be. And I think we're fortunate that for 3 out of the 5 questions, we have a fairly clear majority swinging one way or another on these. That's probably the way that Jagex should go on this, though they could do something else entirely on that. So I just wanted to underscore again as we go into this: advisory, not guaranteed content.
Yeah, I mean, the more overwhelmingly positive or inversely negative, but looking at the actual results, the more positive they get, the harder it is for Jagex to go the other way. Because, it ruins their credibility. Like, we look at the first one, should Master Quest Cape be added? 72% of people say yes. If Jagex doesn't do that, they look really bad.
Yeah, and I was honestly...
the vast majority of your player base.
Yeah.
I was honestly not expecting this one to be passing with such a large majority.
No,
but
me
if it
neither.
trimmed, I mean, it's a bit higher than I thought. I would have thought sort of 60-40, but I really do think there's, it is part of the actual term completionist is completing a game. So a trimmed completionist, you should have to have completed the Master Quest capes with all your mini quests and all that, all the lore in the game, which is tied to that Master Quest cape. I still do think, I mean, I've got it, but I still do think some of the sort of fighting achievements, like getting the drop from Nex and things like that, should be made easier, or there should be an alternative for people who don't want to do that side of things, because the Master Quest cape was sort of bought out as the skiller's completionist cape. Sort of, it was sort of called that at the time. But I as a trimmed completionist, I do think you should have completed everything.
Zardones, where do you fall on this one, having Master Quest and going for trim right now?
I am very torn. So first off, like I'm also very surprised that this is passing so heavily, because like conceptually is the wrong word, but mechanically, trimmed comp and Master Quest are very different capes.
Yeah.
Like, how you get trimmed comp is basically you throw time at a wall and you just do everything you need to do for hours and hours and hours, and you just get it.
Whereas Master Quest is more like a shopping list, right?
Well, more specifically, Master Quest is very RNG. There's a lot of requirements on Master Quest that are go and kill a thing and pray for a 1 in whatever drop. It's very RNG heavy, so it can be very demoralizing for that reason. Like, I think Last Riders is the preeminent example of that. The lore book dropped by King Black Dragon, which is 1 in 2,000 drop. And then it has bad luck mitigation. It's guaranteed at 2,000 kills. Or 20, or whatever it is. It's a very large number of kills. You're guaranteed to get it. Or you roll the dice and you get this very low chance drop very quickly. There's a lot of wrecks like that, so it's very... I was expecting it to not pass because I expected most people to be like, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, same.
I don't want to AFK Adamant Dragons for 6 hours.
And I also thought there'd be a class of trimmed completionist that would not want this added to trim comp because it's just so different and it's in a different league than the rest of the requirements. But there is an alternative point of view on this. And I don't know if this was posted in producers or he told me this, but Thaxi again said that, he didn't think that this should be added to trimmed comp, because so many of those Master Quest achievements are go talk to somebody after you do this quest, or they fall into that same RNG category on that. Yeah. And that just makes how you get them so different than trimmed.
Yeah, but there's a lot of pick up a lamp from Wahisatel after doing XYZ quest. That is true.
Yeah, but to also be fair, I mean, their comp cape, which is the main one that they go for, has all those extra bonuses on it for their fighting. Trimmed doesn't give them any extra bonuses. It's there to show that I understand and play every single part of the game, and that includes the lore and your quests and your mini quests and all that type of thing. So, I mean,
but does it though? But does it? Is that really what the definition of trim is? And this is a bit of a preview about where we're going to go after on this.
Exactly. And that's the thing. A completionist, the definition of completionist definitely means that that's what you do. But if they change the name, then we're talking about a different thing. But under the name that they're using it now as a trimmed completionist cape means that you have done everything in the game. You've completed it. You've done the quests. You've done the fighting.
But does it even mean that?
Well, that's what it should mean. That's what I'm saying. Completionist.
Okay, that's what you think it should mean.
In the dictionary, means yes.
Okay. Tanis, what do you vote on this one?
I almost have to look at it like trophies on PlayStation, right? Or to get the highest stuff, you have to have done everything, including the weird, goofy things. So, I'm with the majority on this.
That it should be added, and that's the same thing that Earth said, is that in his view, there is no reason how you should be able to get the cape that says you've completed RuneScape without completing the lore through the Master Quest. But on the same thing, there's the two alternate sides that User Dones and Faxi has also alluded to, that, there's lots of just go talk to one person, or, grind this for, some amount of time and you get the RNG out of it.
But that's why it's on a trimmed comp and not just the regular comp.
Yeah, go ahead, Sir Dones.
I think the main, because my problem is I keep going back and forth on this question, because on the one hand, I agree that conceptually, if we accept that trimmed comp means you have done, you have deeply understood all aspects of the game, then philosophically, yes, it makes sense that Master Quest should be on it. Because lore is a part of the game, as much as certain parts of the community may wish it weren't. It is. But, and this is sort of what I come back to. I don't think players, and I'm repeating myself a bit from the last time I was on. So if you listen to that podcast, you can sort of tune out for a bit. But I don't think most players look at it that way. I think most players look at trimmed comp as I want shiny thing. Yeah. And when it's I want shiny thing, it becomes a list of tasks that you do. Trim comp is very grindy, which means that the nature of repetition means you gain a kind of mechanical understanding of the systems just through rote repetition. Like you're going to need to know how to do telos fairly well in order to get 100% telos. Now, that's not as true as it used to be, but you know what I mean. But that logic, that works insofar as we accept that trimmed comp is I understand the game very well. But that logic doesn't work for lore. Lore you only understand if you actually engage with it on its own terms.
Yeah. So should somebody who doesn't do that get the Master Quest cape? And as such, from that angle, I can see why, Master Quest might not be a fit to be on trim then.
But then I will say this: I want to be a millionaire. Doesn't mean that I should just get it. The government just hands me $1 million. You have to work at these things. If you want a trimmed comp over a comp cape, and I'm making a very big definition between. I don't believe those RNG type things should be on the comp cape, but on the trimmed comp cape, it should encompass everything, and that's all the different capes that are in game. It's the same as if we go, to the Reaper crew. Why should that be on when I have to rely on other people to get kills on certain things? Yeah, you won't hear any PVMers complaining about that one.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we can move on to that poll question next, unless Zerdones or Tannis have anything on Master Quest still.
Well, I got something just in general, right?
Yeah.
There was a big, they did a big thing when they separated the best in slot combat cape from comp.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That changes this whole discussion that we can have here. I feel like I can say, yeah, no, you gotta complete the game. Sorry, bro. Because it's not the best in slot cape, right? Like
that's right. It's a cosmetic cape.
Yeah, and so in that case, it really like I said, it's like a trophy. Only in this game, you walk around with your trophy. Kind of like a loincloth. You're like, check out my trophy. That's my cape.
But at the same time, and I think I'm skipping ahead a little bit, previewing what we're going to talk about later. At the same time, this is a game. Getting the trophy should be fun.
And that opens up a bigger question: is going for comp fun? Which we can go to in the issues that come up with it.
No,
but I can go to the next one. The Reaper crew is not fun for me because I have to team up with other people, and I don't like teaming.
And with that, you're talking
to play an individual game.
Fair.
And with that, you're talking.
Why should the PVMers, because they don't like to have to sit there and go and pick up a lamp off someone or go and take an item to someone? Why should they not have to do something they don't like, but you're forcing me to do something I don't like, which is teaming up with other people to get some kills?
Yeah, which is for raids and AOD. I think those are the two big ones in there. And the Virago, okay.
Virago, the elite dungeons are soloable, but especially ED3 is a little tricky.
Yeah, unless you've got a death touch start.
Rise of the Six is technically soloable, but
not for the general person.
Yeah. You want to have at least 3 people to do that.
And
I'm not talking about that 1% elite who can do it all by themselves. I'm talking about the 90% of regular players who just want to play the content, enjoy it, get their best in slot capes, but have to then rely on other people to do that.
And that's why this is so interesting. Reaper Crew, as being part of Trim, is passing 67 to 32%.
And as much as I hate it, I voted yes, it should be, because much like the Quest Cape, it is part of the game. I may not like it, but I don't believe it should be on Comp Cape, but definitely on Trim Cape. It is part of the game. And much as I hate it, I should still have to complete it for a trimmed Comp Cape.
And the issue is that when Reaper Crew, when the combat bonus that you got from the Comp Cape was on the Comp Cape and that involved Reaper Crew, it was that you were tying that best in slot combat boost to the Comp Cape, which in turn also limited what they could do for future capes down the road. And as we saw, they did wind up coming out with the Zuck capes. So this is in a way kind of a reverse to this, where you get Reaper Crew, you get those passive combat boosts. Now, if you put that on Trim, I think that is something you can work towards. Most of the bosses in game are easily killable on their story modes, because story mode works for... Does story mode work for the EDs?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
it
has to be elite. It has to be normal mode kill.
Okay, fair then.
Yeah.
And I voted yes on this. Zerdones?
Yeah, I voted yes on it.
All right, Tanis?
I don't vote. I think the Cambridge mob is rigging all this, and it's all fake news. And it doesn't matter if you vote, because it's all rigged.
He's a secret Trumpinator in his heart. It's all rigged.
And for some reason, I feel like the Reaper Crew one is going to be less controversial than the Master Quest one. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong, but why should it? But it shouldn't be, because they're both they're two different segments of the game. It's just that one segment is very vocal in complaining about what they have to do, and the other segment is, well, hey, we do all this type of stuff anyway. What's one more thing that we have to do?
All right, Zerdones.
You got Generation Me versus Generation whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's not controversial. Yeah, I'm not surprised that it's winning.
And
I'm actually surprised it's not winning by more.
And I mean, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, there's lots of good resources out there to teach yourself bossing for this if you really do want to go for Trim and you're not a PVM person. And the way it's looking here right now, if Master Quest Cape does get added to Trim, you're going to be doing some PVM for Master Quest Cape, so you might as well at that point tick off Reaper Crew while you're at it, because there's actually a good amount of combat on Master Quest, which is kind of interesting.
It's worth pointing out that there's a good amount of combat on Trim Comp already. Like, between Comp and Trim, you're already hitting Araxi, Art Glacier, Barrows, Rise of the Six, Telos, Chaos Elemental, I think. Corp, I think.
And other than Rise of the Six, they're all solo bosses, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But they're also generally the easier bosses.
Yeah.
So, like, Raksha is a solo boss, but isn't currently Trim.
I still haven't killed that yet.
Yeah, my kills are just duo there. Should probably go back with the power group that we have now. But that takes us to the next poll question. Should Are You Winning Zam 2 be added as a requirement to unlock Trimmed? And that's 100% Zamorak. And this is 52-47 yes.
100% solo Zamorak.
Yeah.
That needs to be emphasized.
This is just weird because, like we said, 100% Telos is on there with this. Araxi's on there. But at the same time, we're dealing with different leagues of bosses, because at this point in time, with the power creep that we've had, you can start at a 0% Telos and work your way up to 100%. And given what we have in the game today, that 100% Telos skill is going to be about on par with something that you'd find at Araxi. So when you look at Telos 100%, Glacier 100%, and now you say Zamorak solo 100% on here, that's a step up from those ones. So
yeah, it's a massive step up. My devil's advocate position, and I say this as someone who has not, I've done Zamorak on story mode and nothing else. Do not have a single normal mode kill, but when Trim was originally released, 100% Telos was very different than it is now. Like, not mechanically different. The mechanics haven't changed, but
just how easy you can get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was not in a position to do Telos at the time when that came out. I wasn't even playing when Trim came out. But my understanding is that when that first came out, that was the hardest achievement on Trim. So, philosophical question, is it okay to have a requirement that not everyone can finish yet?
That's actually a good way of looking at it, because of course the people who have Trim,
power creep is inevitable,
right? And the people who have it
Eventually,
right now have it, but then there's people who are going for it right now might not be able to. But the next couple things that do come out are going to just make it easier. So,
right.
This is a hard one.
Again,
I
the
voted
other side of that, though,
I voted
is
yes for
Telos was
consistency.
designed as a solo boss,
Right.
and Zamorak was designed as
Correct.
a group boss. You can do it solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinions here. I mean, I didn't agree when 100%, and this was before I was even contemplating Comp or Trimmed when Telos come out. I didn't think 100%. That's an achievement. I don't think that should be part of a cape. As long as you've killed it, it may be set. Okay, you've got to kill it 10 times, but I don't think a percentage kill, enragement kill, should be on any of those capes. So I think that should be an achievement on its own. But I actually voted. This is the only one I voted no for. Because as I said, I don't think just higher enraged. As long as you can show that you're competent at killing the boss, I don't think higher enraged should be added to any capes.
I voted yes for consistency.
Well, yeah, there's a consistency angle. I also want to say, like, I don't have a problem with 100% Zamorak itself, and I understand where you're coming from, Pernasius, but I think for these bosses in particular, the difference is at 100% enrage for Zamorak and Telos, the fight does change meaningfully.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not realize that.
You get a new phase in each.
Yeah, you get a new phase and new mechanics. So
I've never actually looked at the 100%, so I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I did vote no, but knowing that there's a new phase added, I wish I could change my vote to yes, but still, it's sort of neither here nor there now.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with 100% Zamorak. Where I'm not sure is if solo is fair, and I'm not sure.
Well, considering it is a boss that is designed to be multiplayer, then no, it should just be we've killed it at 100%, and you could go in with a couple of mates to do it.
Yeah, I mean the counter argument to that is that you're going to get leached kills, and you're going to incentivize people to.
But
sell
at the same
leeches.
time,
But
at the same time,
anyway.
for people going for Reaper Crew, there's going to be people selling the carries for things like Solak
you
and
get that
Braga.
anyway.
I
you
got
get that
carried
anyway.
through raids, so
You can't.
I mean,
That's a tough one. It's actually
David
very.
took me through.
Oh, he did.
David took me through raids. He took me to what's Virago. He took me through Rise of the Six. I had to do very little to get those kills.
Of course he did with him.
So
Fair enough.
And you know.
So, I mean, you're saying, oh yeah, it's not fair on that, but you're doing on everything else. So why is this one any different?
And to just put into context, David, we're talking about, it's been on the show before, And when
David is my PVM legend. He is my PVM god.
Because when I was going for comp initially, and Reaper crew, when it was time for Solak and Virago, I went with him and his friend, and we did an hour of both of those, and it was actually fairly chill, even for me.
When Mod Mark was proposing his church of me a player church where everyone worships you, I would have worshipped at the church of David because he was that good at the PVM for me.
Yeah, David put baby in the corner.
Exactly.
Oh, right, you're talking about your ED1 experience.
Uh-huh.
Just go stand over there and we'll do it.
Be pretty.
Go stand in the corner and eat tennis.
What was the other one? Was the what was that one where up in the Elven Glade up there,
Solak,
where you get the crossbow? Solak, yeah. He took me there. I mean, every major group boss. I mean, David just took me and got me all the kills.
And see, that's the point.
There's no way I would have got them all without him.
And to bring it back to what we're discussing, why
Zook
not?
Shouldn't be any different.
Why not have Zamorak in there at 100% with a group? Because people are gonna buy carries for things like Solak and Virago and whatnot.
Exactly. So you should be able to, again, consistency. That should be consistent throughout the game.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only reason it's there is because Telos and Archglacior 100% are both on there, and those are both solo bosses. So it's consistency from another angle.
Yeah.
But they're a solo boss, not a group boss.
They're designed to be solo. Yeah.
Exactly. This is designed to be a group boss.
Yeah.
That you can solo, but
yeah.
All right. Tanis, yes or no on this one? I don't think we got your yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. And then, should full Globetrotter be added as a requirement to unlock comp? 70% yes, 29% no. And this is how many clues are we talking about, Zerdones, here?
This is little shy of 5,000 points, so it's hard to... Because how many points you get depends on what clues you do. It's a couple thousand clues, no matter how you slice it.
And this is going back to 2018. They've been tracking on this. So
I think if you're doing easy clues only, that's the worst you can do. Every 500 easy clues is 626 points. So that's
2,500 easy clues ish,
thereabouts. Yeah. Now, I mean, easy clues they're named for a reason. They're not difficult.
They're not good, and they have minutes to do.
Actually, if you want those components,
they're really
excellent for those, because you just go down, you pickpocket hand members, you'll pick up your 25 clues in under an hour, and then you can knock out those 25 clues in another hour, and then back and just do it all again. So it's not hard.
Grindy.
It's grindy.
And,
but,
we did a monthly bit on the clue scroll system and how to best do clues and the best tier of clues to do for profit and speed. So it's definitely something that can be optimized. But at the same time, I feel like, once again, this one just feels arbitrary that it's being there. But does it make sense to ask somebody who's going for comp to do that many, or trimmed comp to do that many clues?
For trimmed comp, yes. For comp, no. Again, it's unlocking something that's in the game.
Okay, Zerdones, where did you land on this?
So I voted yes, but I'm going to, because I could only vote yes because it was a yes or no poll. Because I have more space here, I'm going to risk a controversial opinion.
Oh, dear.
I think Globetrotter should be on comp. Fight me.
I wouldn't disagree with that. But
I am giving you a one-eyed face right now. You're going to have to tell me why.
So I think it's So first off, I think historically it's strange that clues haven't been on comp. Before this week's update, I don't think there was a single treasure trail requirement on comp or trim at all. And that feels very strange. Like, it is a part of the game, so it feels odd that it's not on the capes that are meant to be parts of the game. Now, they have remedied that to an extent with these updates, but personally, I think that I'm not super happy with the clue updates that they've done to the capes. I think they're on the light side, because the comp rec that they've done is, we did go over them, but just to reiterate, the new comp recs for clues are do one of every tier
and complete one of every puzzle.
Do one of each puzzle. If you do one clue of every tier, you are very likely to get one of each puzzle already. Like, you get puzzles so often when you do clues, it's not even close. You will do that very quickly. So what I keep going back to on this is early in the year, I think it was the first episode of the year actually, you and Sirion sat down with Mod Jack, and eventually the conversation wended its way towards Completionist.
Yep.
And Jack laid out 3 tiers of completionism.
Yep.
That he called participation, completion, and then he didn't have a good name for it. He called it trimmed completion. Privately, I've been calling it exhaustion, but I don't think that quite works either. But either way, to me, participation is, like, I think the comp cape should be completion rewards or completion achievements.
Yeah. And
the clue scroll requirements that they added this week feel like participation. Globetrotter is grindy, but it's it's a gameplay benefit. It's a very marked gameplay benefit if you're doing clues. And B, it's also a very handy benchmark for I have completed clues. And then the trim comp requirement, in my opinion, should be buy out the shop. Which in the shop, there's a pet, 3 titles, and a couple of QOL upgrades. Like, there's one that increases your carry limit for clues, and there's one that makes it so medium clues, you don't need to go get keys for some of those puzzles. You can just, you just kick it open, which I love that animation.
So good.
Yeah. I love the animation. You just mighty boot the chest or drawers or whatever.
No, I just love the QOL of that one.
Yeah, it's really good. So, long story short, my opinion, Globetrotter is a completionist gameplay modifying achievement. It should be on comp. Buying out the store is cosmetic. It should be on trim.
Well, I'd back you on that.
And given the Mod Jack description from where we had that discussion with him, and I think on that episode he's like, "Oh, let's do an episode about comp. Let's do a 3-hour episode about comp." I think he said that on there too.
Hell yeah, do it.
Bring him on and do it. I'd love to hear him talk about comp
for 3 hours.
Well, it doesn't have to be 3 hours, but in a format that he can just get his opinions out, do it, and then upload it, not have all the chat going nuts like they do on Twitch. That's a sort of discussion.
Maybe we need to do that.
Can't be a live stream discussion. It needs to be a proper discussion, sit down, where it can be spoken about calmly and properly, and not with all your trolls screaming because they don't like it.
Zerdones, I think you might have convinced me to put a yes on that and to come into your camp on this, despite me not liking the idea of having to get Globetrotters for myself for comp or eventually trim.
One of us.
And as I said, I fully agree with it being on trim. That I was sort of, it shouldn't be. Comp designers made the beautiful argument on why it should be. You've actually convinced me to say, hey, bring it down to comp. And
hey, given my RNG, who knows what I get on all the clue scrolls?
Well,
right?
Exactly. You'd be sitting there. You'd be able to buy a blue party hat with what you get out of all that.
back to back Orlando Smith's hats.
Ooh. Exactly. All that, what's it? The ice dyes? He'd be just cleaning it up.
Anyways, Tanis, have you been convinced yet? I know clues are not the most accessible thing for you.
Yeah, no, I don't. No, I have every clue that I've ever gotten in the bank. I've tried to. Yeah, I've tried to pay people like, hey, guide, like I'll stream it, guide me through it. We'll split the money.
I mean, I hate Alt 1 and don't think it should be allowed in game. But does Alt 1 help you at all?
I've never used it.
You should probably try Alt 1 for clues.
Yeah, for someone like yourself, I would fully back using Alt 1. For people who don't have the sort of the troubles that you have, I don't think it should be used. But I mean, there's also the great thing is all the clue, although they're overpriced now, but all the clue skips that you had, I made a fortune out of selling all those.
Oh yeah.
I did a thing last year where I did 1,000 of each clue and then opened them all at once.
Wow.
That was so fun, and I made bills out of the just selling the clue skips.
Nice.
Oh yeah, those the puzzle box skips are wild.
Yeah,
how much
I
they go
love
for.
puzzle boxes. Are my favorite. They're slider puzzles are so fun to do.
All right. And then finally, should they consider renaming comp and trimmed comp to better fit the requirements? And this is 50-50 down the middle. And I think the reason it's 50-50 down the middle is, what would the alternative name be? And that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Like, what would you name this, right? Like
some sort of master's cape. Master of games, master of something. I don't know, but
we already have master of all for skill pets.
Yeah, but if you don't have, if you're not truly having a completionist game with having your globetrotters and your masters and your reapers and all that type of thing, I don't think it's truly a completionist cape.
Yeah, like I think based on what we have talked about, the comp cape makes sense being named the comp cape. And then
if it is truly completing the game.
Yeah, and then trimmed. I mean, I don't know what you would name that after that. It's kind of like in that third category based on that episode.
Master
yeah. I mean, if your perspective is that comp should be completing the game, then there is no room for a trimmed comp.
Yeah,
because so then you're basically saying comp is max rune score.
Yeah, which becomes a dangerous idea in itself then, because that's a continual chase if you were to do that.
Well, it's not just that it's a continual chase. Like, you can, based on the strict semantic definition of completionism, you can make a compelling argument that comp should be
true comp.
True trimmed. Which is, I think, literally unachieved. I don't think anyone has done true trimmed.
No.
And like that, you can make that argument, and you can make that semantic argument. I don't think that's a good gameplay design decision.
No.
So then
that's
the question
goal
becomes,
you set for yourself.
Well, then the question becomes: you're compromising on the strict semantic definition of completionism. It becomes a question of, well, okay, we're drawing a line somewhere. Someone's going to be unhappy. Where do we draw it?
Bingo. That's the problem throughout this entire thing.
For competitors' cape, or as I call it, the complainers' cape.
I don't know that it needs to be called that. I think we've come a long ways on that.
No, I do go back a few years ago when... I mean, I was very salty when the original Comp Cape rework in 2019, they just took that off because I was so excited about it. I even wore the salty title for a month or so after that because I was really annoyed. But at the time, I mean, I understand, and I mean the same. We then bought out the Master Max Cape last year. We're looking at doing things. So while at the time it was killed, they said it's not going to go away completely, and they're slowly introducing new things. I think they do need to define what is comp and what is trimmed comp better on what things go onto there. They should have an actual, this is what it means, so these are what is going to go onto it, no ifs, buts or maybes. I do like the fact that they're doing a poll that isn't okay if it passes by this much, we're going to do it. If it fails by, if it doesn't hit that 75%, say 74% of people want it and 26 don't, we have a 75% threshold, then we don't do it. It is an advisory one. I love that they are doing that. I think when we say, the first one, 72%, I think that's a no-brainer. They're going to put that in. The Zami 100%, 52-47. Well, that's the one that they can decide on then. I think they've done it the right way this way.
And I think with the renaming of comp and trimmed comp, I think at this point you just leave it as it is unless they come out with a major redesign to what this is.
Exactly. And again, as you said, what name can you have for it that is going to encompass exactly what it is.
Right. And then also if you change the name, say the current trim became just the Completionist cape, as in, you have completed everything, and then you bring out some other cape in between, which I'm still struggling for a name for. Somebody who's been away from the game from 2 or 3 years will then say, oh, what is this when I get back? And it's just going to sow tons and tons of confusion. So
exactly.
I mean, these are capes that have been in the game a decade at this point. It's best to just leave them as is name-wise, I think.
Yeah. I mean, their original names were the Tier 1 was the Comp Cape, the Tier 2 was the True Comp Cape, and the Tier 3, where they had everything, was the Insane Comp Cape. So all they did was, they kept the Comp Cape as the Comp Cape, and then they just changed Trim to True, and then added a third one, which was Insane.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really where we need to be going with that type of thing.
No.
I think, as you said, especially because the game is 20-plus years old, I think at this stage you can't really change the name of the cape, but they do need to define exactly what it does and stick to that design plan.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to thank some Patreon supporters because where we go next actually piggybacks off of one of our monthly bits that we did last year. And it was our monthly bit on the Comp Cape rework, looking back on it, monthly bit 45. And we asked the question, what does it mean to complete RuneScape? Well, we actually just answered that with the very roundabout discussion and having the various 3 tiers of comp. You can have your participatory level, you can have your completionist level, and then you can have your trimmed comp or your insane comp level. And we discussed that and more about looking back at that comp cape rework. But as we've been talking about comp now, about what it really means, we have an entire episode about this in the back catalog of our monthly bits that you can find at patreon.com/RSBANB, and you can subscribe there just like these fine people have done. This week I'd like to thank Alfie S., Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arvids L., Beekeeper Steve, Big Huge Rat, Chunk the Monk, Cycle RS, Drama Free, Duramax, Free Milk, Jacob G., Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jeebus, Jesse W., Keski, Ling01, Mohan V, Nate the Great, Nick G, Pernasius, Ricky A, RS Nerdherd, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Shirtpants, Stub Eve, Tabby, The Naked Captain, The Dabbin Goat, Tim, Tom V, Zant, and Zazakon. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Truly means the world to us. And these discussions, like we're having right now about comp, or where we go on our monthly bits, which is our bonus show, and you gain an entire catalog of these, upwards of 57 plus episodes, all an hour long each, thereabouts, talking in depth about one RuneScape topic or another. You get all of those just by signing up at patreon.com/RSBNB for as little as $1 a month. And right now, Patreon supporters are voting for the next one. And the next ones are actually going to be really spicy. We got the evolution of transportation, the God alignment chart, and a deep dive on the lore of the gnomes. So we'll have an answer in the next week or so about where we go on that. But we also have 2 more tiers. We have our VIP tier for $3 a month, where you'll receive a special VIP rank on our Discord. That includes chat channel access, as well as a mention on the podcast at the start of the month and access to high-quality stereo versions of the show. And if you want to give the ultimate gift, we have our $5 a month plan, where you receive a shout-out on the podcast each and every week and gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year, in addition to everything else. So, of course, a big thank you goes out to all of our Patreon supporters for making what we do here possible. And of course, we're going to pick up the discussion right now on what does it mean to complete RuneScape, something we talked about on Monthly Bit 45. But given what we've talked about here, everything from the Master Quest Cape, go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing. With the patrons, how close are we to the Hot Ones challenge?
We're a little bit under half from that, and we're going to be reevaluating all that stuff too, based on the survey and whatnot. And now that you mention it, big thank you to all the Patreon members for filling out the survey. We just finished doing our annual Patreon survey, spring survey, where the patrons guide where we take this endeavor. So big thank you and to them for filling it out. Thank you for bringing that up, because that actually reminded me about the survey, and I wanted to mention that. So good. So where we been? Master Quest, Reaper Crew, things like Zamorak 100%, Globetrotter. I think we have a better picture now of what it means to be complete with RuneScape. And Zerdones, I don't know why this didn't work its way into the actual production of this episode, but what you said, going back to the Mod Jack episode at the start of the year, participatory completion, insane completion. I think that's the spectrum we want to go with for this. And when you look at where we're at with this, the things that were added to comp this week make sense to be in that completionary category. And then you have your more insane things like Reaper Crew, Master Quest, and the Globetrotter going into the trim category. Though you did make a compelling argument for why Globetrotter should be on comp and not trim. I'm actually pretty happy with that definition of what it means to be complete with RuneScape. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, let's just give Jagex some credit here. We always talk about messaging and sometimes not quite making the mark. But can we just sit back and recognize that nearly all of the major broad brush strokes that were in the complicated comp rework have worked their way into the game. Much like, expansions without expanding. So now is the final touch. Here, vote on it, everybody. But we're gonna get it anyway.
That's a good point, because when you factor in your 120 all cape, you have your max, then you have 120 all. Yeah. And then at that point, at some point in the future, they'll say, well, this is our trimmed completionist cape where you complete everything. A few years down the line, it might make sense to have 120 all on the trimmed cape.
Yep. And a few years after that, a 200 mil cape.
Mm-hmm.
So,
as it should be, right?
Well, again, their argument at the time for the Master of All, the Master Max cape, they said there weren't enough players at the time 2 years ago, but now, and especially over where so many people sort of had time off to sort of get a lot of their skills up. There were a lot more people who sort of had the 120, so it made sense for them to introduce a cape for them to do those achievements. And as I said, I was very salty at the time when the original comp cape didn't go through, but we are seeing it creeping into the game in different things, and I like that. But the capes themselves, need better definition on what's on them. I would love to see something like a master trimmed comp cape one day, where it is encompassing absolutely everything in game. But I think they're doing a good job, and as Tanner said, we didn't get it in the one bulk lot at the time, and just like expansions, what they're doing at the moment with Fort for N3, we're getting that little batch, that little mini.
Do you think
expansion
it's working its way? You guys think it's working its way in via osmosis, where the community is just consistently talking about these things, and the devs that have their ear to the ground are just picking up on that, or there might be even devs inside Jagex who are on that same path? I wonder.
Yeah,
I think the devs themselves. Sorry, you go, Tennis. I talk about.
I was gonna say, because at first they dropped the frog in the pot.
Right.
Frog didn't like that shit. but they've just been slowly turning up the heat. Ain't anybody notice.
That's a
good analogy.
Yeah.
And just incremental complexity.
Yeah, and I think that's what this community needs.
It is.
We are a very passionate. The RuneScape players are a very passionate community. That they love their game, they love it, but unfortunately, like humankind, I mean, we worry about the I and not the we. In the majority of cases, we want what we want, and screw everyone else. This way, everyone's getting what they want eventually. It isn't one big drop that I would have loved back in 2019, but it is slowly coming in. And since Mod Warden, when he first come in, I know he's left now, but sort of since that time, I think Jagex is doing the right thing. They are listening to the broader base of the community. Yes, they do listen to that sort of 1% who scream the loudest a lot, but they are listening to the broader community as well and bringing little things in through ninja strikes and not big fanfare updates, but just doing it, hey, as a weekly thing, this is what we're doing. We're adding a little bit more, and I think they've done it really well.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm ready to reach a conclusion on this, but we have to talk about a few points of inconsistency first, and most of these were brought forward here by you, Zerdone. So I'm just going to run through these, and feel free to chime in on these. Wilderness flash events are conspicuously absent on Trim and Comp, except for the Civil War II achievement.
Yeah, I know this got a little bit of discussion earlier, but I feel like this is another one where it's participation versus completion. Like the change they made to reduce Civil War Part 2 to do a single flash event, that makes sense from a participation standpoint. It feels bad for Comp, and it feels bad for Trim, in my opinion. Because it is just that participation level. It's you go and you do one thing. Now, granted, the flash events are not terribly mechanically deep.
No, and I mean, you hit a special one, and that counts for 3. So if you really wanted to, split that one out, that was 100 flash events. You do, one a day over a month, and you're there.
And they got rid of the wildy mobs popping up and attacking you at any time.
Yeah, because threats.
So they made it a lot easier, a lot less risky.
Yeah, that's what I laugh about. They took it off. They made it easier and then took it off.
Yeah.
And with them, it also comes down to being able to just figure out when you want to log in for that, because, I feel like flash events are the perfect mobile piece of content, which we talked about on their launch, but there's no way to know when they're happening on mobile aside from, keeping a schedule on the RS Wiki. Like, what would be wonderful is if you could go to the flash events guy on your mobile client and then just have it deliver you a push notification for the specified flash events that you want. And then you could get a reminder 10 minutes before so you know to log in.
Isn't there that calendar thing that they used to have that...
Yeah, the calendar still exists, but that's mainly community events.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you can, in the RuneScape Discord, I don't think you can sign up for specific ones, but there are Wilderness Flash event roles that you can register for if you join the official RS Discord, and they will send you, it looks like so there's 3 categories. There's a special, a combat, and a skilling. And you can get, they'll ping you.
Oh, okay. So just
15
sign up
minutes
for special
before.
then. So I guess that works. That's a way of getting the notification that you can just log in wherever you're at.
Yeah.
All right.
It doesn't help you if you're looking for like a specific one, like if you really only want the rare one or whatever, but...
Yeah, okay, fair.
Yeah.
Hidey holes. We mentioned that, building them is now all on Comp, but stuffing them is not on Trim.
So in the original proposal posted on Reddit, the reasoning for this, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me at the time, the logic was they thought that the expense of filling the hidey holes was too much for Comp.
Right.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, infinity boots.
Infinity boots are quite expensive. Demon Slayer, the Demon Slayer hat I think you need is fairly expensive. There's a couple of things on there that are fairly expensive. So if you're not an iron, it costs you a lot. If you are an iron, it's going to take you a lot of time to do it. But
it also costs you a lot of money to get the armor to be able to fight Zamorak at 100%. And it costs you a lot of money in resources to do all that, the supplies and everything. So, I mean, and especially with the way the economy is now, I don't think cost should really be an issue these days, especially when you're talking about something like trimmed comp, where you're not talking about a new player who's going to have 10 mil to his name. You are talking about players who have played a long time and should have a fairly decent bank stack.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's fair to have filling the hidey holes on trim and building the hidey holes on comp. Because building the hidey holes is not expensive.
Not at all.
I did the math. If you buy all the materials, it's like a little over $1 million.
That's not bad at all.
Not a lot of money. That's one fort comp.
Yeah.
From clues.
Okay. And then we have mini games.
Pour one out for mini games.
Right. And the problem with that is that mini games are just so horrible in RS3. And the only way they pop off is if they're on Spotlight or you're doing them with a dedicated group.
Yeah, I think the weird thing for me is they keep taking mini games off, but they don't just rip the Band-Aid off. Like, they took Conquest off a while ago, they took Castle Wars off years ago. This week they took off Hard Mode Barbarian Assault and Trouble Brewing, essentially. So why is Big Chinjampa still on comp? Why is Castle Wars still on Taskmaster, which is on comp? Why do you still need to get to wave 10 of normal mode Barbarian Assault for comp? It feels weird to take some mini games off, but not all of them. When really, like, all mini games are in kind of the same state. Pretty much.
Even things like fish flingers.
Fish and crawler.
Yeah, no,
fish flingers. Fish flingers,
where you got to upgrade that that tackle box and things.
Yeah. Although that is completable solo, although it's a lot harder if it's solo.
It's actually one that I enjoy doing, so I'm not complaining about that one. I enjoy playing fish flingers, but it was because it is one I play. It just sort of is in my head. It is one of those mini games that is still on there and takes a lot. And the other thing with that, it is limited how many times a day you can play it.
Yes, it is. Well, it's also like Fish Flingers is interesting because it's fairly active, but I think it's only active because of people getting trim.
Yes.
Like, I don't think anyone does fit. Maybe Iron characters do.
Yeah,
but I don't think mains do it.
That's
for any other reason.
Definitely Iron things in there.
But I mean, I don't think you should design around irons.
No, and that's a whole other issue as well. We also have Reaper Crew that's probably going to be added to trim. But with that, there's also a bunch of other questions that are involved in this, because if we're adding Reaper Crew to trim, we also need to remember we have Telos, 100% Telos on trim. And then we also might have 100% Zamorak solo on trim, but we also have 100% Glacier on trim as well. And these are different 100% bosses, but they're all various different calibers and bring different things to it, when in comparison, you are just adding a kill one of everything to trim. And I feel like that this is a case of inconsistency for these, where we're almost at a point here where, because we don't have 100% enrages for all the bosses in the game, we have to... I'm starting to question if even these 100% ones should be on trim, given the fact that Reaper Crew is probably going to be added to it.
Well, I think the I think I have no problem with 100% Telos and 100% Zamorak because, as we mentioned before, they do introduce new mechanics. So there is something new to see.
Right.
I think the inconsistency for me is why is Archglacior at 100%? Because 100%
there's no new mechanic.
Right, it's just more Archglacior. Really, Archglacior should be on at 250% because that is when you do get a new mechanic. It's not much of a new mechanic.
That's actually a good point. Yeah. That's a good point.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, if it's, I mean, and that's because the trimmed is for deep understanding. So if there's a new mechanic at 250%, it should be 250%. I say this horrified because I'll never. I mean, I doubt.
Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah, Archglacior is actually not that hard.
No, I do like it. It's only that cannon thing that stuffs me up.
But that's easy. Yeah. That's actually one of the easier mechanics.
I hate switchscape. So
don't switch. Just devotion.
Okay, I thought you had to put on the shield and resonate.
If you get back-to-back cannons, you're kind of hosed, but you can get through one of them just Prey Mage and Devo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it higher in rages. If you do get the back-to-back, that's when you have to start considering using defensives and shields and whatnot.
Barricade or debilitate or...
Yeah. And this all brings up the number one thing with the polls that we saw this week is that the polls don't clarify the inconsistencies in comp and trim, and in fact, they add to them. And with that, we get back to our discussion on Reaper Crew, on the Master Quest Cape, on flash events, on the hidey holes, in that, you know, the things that were done this week, the update that we got this week to comp and trim is good. I'd say 5 out of 5 on that. Would you guys all agree with that?
Definitely.
The actual update this week.
Yep, loved it.
Yeah, maybe 4.5.
Okay.
I would have preferred something I had to actually go and do on my comp cape rather than just the Reaper. The Raptor skull thing.
You could join me on my You could join me on my gaps, traps, and laps achievement.
I'll bring the dollar bills.
Okay.
Bring those 1 GP coins.
Yeah.
So that's what they do in Varrock. Okay.
We go visit Ariana.
I lost my train of thought on that.
Sorry.
But it comes down to a case of inconsistencies as being the problem with comp. Because this week did wonders for what we have in game right now. But the polls and where we go in the future still has lots of unanswered questions about this. And I think the answer to the big question of what does a comp rework in 2023 look like is a bit of a hidden one, because Tanis, you said it best. We're almost already there with the 120 all cape, right? And then various other capes like the Master Quest cape and whatnot. And then things from the Clue Scroll store, for example. We're kind of already there almost. So I think where we go next from this to, in effect, have the 2023 comp rework, and something I think everybody can agree on, is a consistent standard of what comp means, of what trim means. And then modifying and molding both comp and trim as we have it to fit within that standard. And then with that, hey, maybe even, poll the community if they'd like a modern incarnation of the comp and trim capes, because we got modern incarnations of the skill capes. And then with that, adhere to that standard, and then add some more achievements around the edges, like the ones that are being pulled and the ones that were added today. And then factor that all in with your Master Quest cape, with your 120 all cape, and things from the Rune Score area, and then the Clue Scroll store. I think that's what you wind up having the 2023 comp cape rework look like. And I was a little bit worried when we started this episode, because I felt like we were further away from being able to do and envision a comp cape rework. But I feel like with the content that we have after laying it all out on the table, I feel like we're in a better position today in 2023 to work towards that, and it feels like Jagex had been working towards that, than we were in 2019. And by far the biggest thing is just let's get a consistent standard down of what these capes mean.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you do that, the rework in effect paints itself, because we're almost all there with the updates we've been seeing. So, and like you said, it's like boiling the frog. You don't know you're there until, oh, it's getting kind of hot in here. Oh, there's our comp cape rework.
Yep.
So, all right. Anything else on comp and trim before we move on? Going once. Going twice.
No, I don't think so.
Gone.
Yep.
All right. 3 little general patch notes this week. Unwelcome guest now awards 1 quest point and is a requirement for the quest cape. So that was an oversight from last week. Good.
And I thought that was weird because it really felt like a mini quest to me.
It did.
Well,
but
wasn't there a discussion whether it was a mini quest or
there
full
was.
Quest?
There was.
Yeah. I like this one much better than the first one. But...
And the thing is, with the new Foundations one that opened the fort, that was a quest. Gave treasure hunter keys, gave you your quest cape back, and gave a quest point. So if unwelcome guest is going to be in that same category, it should be there too. So I'm glad they went that way.
That's why I had extra keys the other day.
No, that's not why you had extra keys. That was part of that was a part of a make good offering from when the servers went down about a week and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
They gave everyone keys.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
The items required to build the tier 1 guardhouse have been added to the quest journal. Good.
Yep. Like
and removed some safe spots when fighting Zebra Eagles undead.
I knew I should have gone in there earlier.
I'm wondering if it's going to make this a little bit harder for cannoners to just not aggro the entire room and take them on one at a time.
I don't understand. When they release these new Slayer mobs, there should be a caveat that there's no cannons for the first month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. I mean, I've got the lower 3, but the last one, the armored zombies or whatever they are, the top tier one.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I went in there, and there's just everywhere there was cannons. I finally found a spot. I started fighting. These guys come in, dropped a cannon, and it's just like, yep, he took everything. I'm sitting there going, why am I even bothering? So I just gave it up, and I thought I'll go in a couple of weeks when it's quiet.
Yeah, they should have said no cannons in there with the instancing.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same.
Even for the first month, just the first 4 weeks.
I would like to see the cannons. So, number 1, drop the restriction to use. We'll drop the restriction to use them in your player-owned dungeon, and add it everywhere else. If you want to piss with your cannon, do it in your own dungeon, your own house. Stop screwing it up for everyone else. I mean, we're all guilty. It's not like I've never used a cannon, but I'm also reformed. You know, I used to smoke cigarettes, and you know,
I've only ever used a cannon when I was fighting the ones in the Prif
Asylum
dungeon down there. The Prif dungeon.
The
which?
The Eddies.
Yes, Eddie moves. That's right. When I was going for the pet, 38,000 kills before I got the pet. But,
oh God!
Yeah. But hey, I made a ton of money out of it though. Made a ton of money, so I'm not.
Yeah, that's when those shards were hot. Those blood.
Yes. Oh yeah, made a ton out of those.
All right, good.
Yep.
So I bought a cosmetic this week here. That was launched this week that you guys might have noticed was available now. They brought out the retro Saradomin armor in the marketplace this week, and I bought that with rune coins. I saw it on the news post, and I just thought, oh my god, this actually looks good, and not the full retro version, but the reforged one. Really into this armor set. I have to say, it looks really, really good. For people watching the video version right now, I got the full retro one up, but I'm going to toggle to the reforged one right now. And the main reason I wanted to talk about this is because this is quite honestly a treatment that all of the other pieces of God armor could use in the game. The Zamorak, the Gothics, the Zaros, the Bandos, and so on and so forth. They could really use this kind of modern treatment with the modern materials on it.
But that's, rather than releasing them all together, it's a good thing to do. Sort of maybe do one every couple of months.
But the thing is that they're not even on the calendar to do these because these were ones that were voted on, and I'm just shocked at how good these look. If I'm being honest, to the point,
it looks fantastic. Other than it being for Saradomin, I hate Saradomin more than I hate Zamorak. I know he's supposed to be the god of good, but he's just a tool bag.
I know, and the reason I actually picked this up is that back in the olden days, and we're talking, peak RuneScape 2, what my outfit was that I always wanted but was never actually able to afford in game was that Saradomin armor with the kite shield and everything to that effect. And it's a shame there's no kite shield here, but let's be honest, in modern combat, unless you're using a defensive for that long, you're not going to really pull a shield up for that long. So I can see why they didn't do the shield. But the best way I think to raise awareness of these is to talk about it like we're talking about now on the podcast, and just showcase how good these things look, and say phenomenal. That if you really like the idea of these retro overrides, just like all the other ones that we've got, the best thing to do is to vote with your wallet, or in this case your bond pouch, and pick these up for rune coins. So I'm gonna be finding a way to work this into my general outfit here. So if you were ever a fan of the Saradomin armor, go pick that up as a cosmetic override now. So, and it's actually an expensive one too. It cost me 3 bonds worth of rune coins to get, which was about 585 rune coins with the membership sale, I believe. So.
Yeah, the news post says it's 560.
Okay, so I rounded up a bit then.
Well, I mean that's bonds. You buy them in packages, right? So,
yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean
the sneaky.
Yeah, and that was 3 bonds. So, that was about 200 mil ish. Dare I say it? But worth it. Worth it. So. All right. ModJack did a live stream this week. How to talk to JMods and have your suggestions and ideas listened to.
Can I just say, first off, try being polite.
Yeah, what a concept.
What a novel idea.
Yeah, and, I have to say that for people who listen to this podcast, and the vast majority of people in surrounding communities around RSBANDB, what you hear in this live stream is probably not going to have that much of an impact on you, because I know our community and the vast majority out there of you guys that I have interacted with are polite and kind individuals. So, this gets to a point, again, with the ModJack live streams, Tanis, that you and I were talking about earlier this week, is that the people who need to watch these live streams are not going to watch them.
Well, the people that don't need to watch them are watching them, but they're too busy commenting in Twitch chat to pay attention to what's being said.
And again, it's that case of just that 1% who just need to scream about everything. I mean, I call them the perpetually outraged brigade because they're only happy when they're unhappy and yelling at other people. Yeah. And that's not the way. That's not the way. I mean, the mods are humans. They're there doing a job that, this is their livelihood. They want the best game out there because it keeps them employed. They want to do everything is good, but just because they don't agree with you doesn't mean that they're in the wrong. They're looking at the broader picture, and the way to get people to listen to you is not to yell and scream and insult them. It's, it's to be calm and be polite and say, hey, how about this idea? Why can't we do this? I really don't understand people, but
And the interesting part about this, and we'll get to the what I think is a pretty good conclusion of it, is that there's two different ways about going about this. And the first one is to consider whether you're talking to CM, community management, or the developers. And this is also interesting because people might not know this, but what the CMs actually do is they gather what the community is saying at large and then report that back to the developers. He said CM has a seat at most of the design meetings that take place. And, with that, the information comes in aggregate. But when you're talking to individual developers, it all comes back to tone, because the devs, in their free time, choose to interact with the player base, which we need to underscore is very, very rare for the game development community. I play 2 other MMOs on and off, and I don't know of a game community where their MMOs interact with the community as much as the Jagex moderators do. And with that, Modjack's point was that it's not part of the developer's job to engage with every player on a one-to-one basis. There's simply no time for developers to talk to everybody who would want to talk to them. And then he brought out the vague to specific and rude to polite feedback axis, where what you really want is specific but polite feedback. That's the category that's going to help the most, rather than, saying, oh, God, this is absolutely garbage, which is vague and rude, of course. So... let's see what else was there. If you want to engage with devs personally and get your voice heard, be specific and polite, which, when you think about it, that's exactly what this podcast does. And I think everybody who is on the show fits into that category. If we have any windbags on the show who listeners feel are in the other category, well, that's on me then.
I can do that sometimes, but no.
Yeah.
What I would say is just, when you're sitting there typing something out, imagine that being typed at you and how you'd feel about it. If you say someone's speaking to me that way, how am I going to feel? Okay, I'm not going to like that. Why am I doing it to someone else?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key, and Modjack kind of got into that a little bit when he started talking about streamer voice. And the internet in general and social media in particular really conditions you to that kind of behavior.
Yep. Keyboard
really
warriors.
Rewards it.
Yep. Clickbaiting keyboard warriors, that, look at me type thing.
Well, I don't think it's that so much. It's acting that way. For one thing, when you're interacting with someone across a screen, it's easy to forget that that's a person. And you react to them differently than you would if it's a person. But also, social media, the way social media sites are set up, they're set up specifically to reward you for that kind of aggressive behavior, because that creates engagement, and engagement is what they measure. So if you act that way, you get a lot of positive reinforcement saying, good on you for acting that way. You should continue acting this way.
And to pull a little bit back behind the curtain, you guys have had no idea how many times I've asked people on producers, Tanis, Sirion, etc., others, guys, should we just maybe be a little bit inflammatory here to debate the metrics this week? But it always comes back to delivering an honest and to the point production here for the podcast, at least. Tanis, I saw you light up. You were going to say something.
Well, I don't even remember now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I must have been watching it. It might have just been something off to the side. Modjack also said that he feels that he is unusually tolerant, where most devs won't just engage at all. Modjack will actually go out and talk to people who
I would agree with
disagree
that
with. Yeah, you and I have seen that before, right? In Discord.
Oh, not on Discord. Well, a little bit on Discord, but the example I was thinking of was, do you remember a couple of years ago when they renamed all the NPCs in Polnivniak?
Oh, right. All
They
the
changed all
alleys.
the LEs.
Yeah.
If you go to ModJack's Twitter account and you go down to that, like if you scroll down through his replies to that period of time, he spent like a whole afternoon just tearing into people who were salty about that. Like, whether or not you think it was a good update or not my point. Like, that much commitment is very admirable, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's lead game designer now.
Admirable, and also maybe, like, spend more time with your kids, man. Step away. You don't need this.
And that's what he said as well, is that he likes Discord because he's able to use it and talk to people while he's spending time with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not spending time with your family, dude. That's being present but not spending time with them.
And then he talked about feedback versus suggestions, where he said sometimes people feel ignored when Jagex doesn't do the impossible, which I feel like I feel like that's Chincendiary and the thing we talked about last week with the shared cooldowns and how Mountain is made out of a molehill.
Mm-hmm.
Delete Treasure Hunter, delete EOC.
Yeah. And he said the industry.
I mean, that's it. That's if that's the worst thing happening in your life is that Jagex hasn't updated something the way you want to. You're living a very good life.
I mean,
right,
and I mean, if you were like a RuneScape streamer or something, and it was your primary source of income, and that was going to potentially change the way you would stream and what you could PVM, then I could see maybe making a complaint about it in that way. But by and large, this is what the bulk of the community does for their rest and relaxation downtime, and I think that's why there's that majority of people out there that are just silent and are largely okay with the way combat has been going. Combat for the rest of us, as we started calling it last week. Mm-hmm. But once again, highlight that the industry standard is to funnel the feedback through CM, but it was noted that's a very typically one-way street, and it has no option of dealing with the specifics, which we know is very, very key to RuneScape. And in many ways, the RuneScape players are lucky that so many devs are willing to engage like that. But when it comes down to it, what he said is the best advice to give is to be a part of the creative process. And he said that's why so many of the devs want to actually interact with the community. And that's why ModJack also spends time on Discord, because the type of the community that's there works well for him. It's kind of just like, hanging out and chatting about RuneScape things. And he said that, one of the best things you can do is to generate hype about your ideas. And that goes into his line about how suggestions could be made for RS. But as the ModJack streams go, there was also a discussion about what the initial Elder God Wars dungeon would have looked like, and he wanted it to initially be the Body of Wen, but it was decided that they couldn't do that because they wanted to really bring Sentistan to life. But that Body of Wen was actually going to have a different variation of the Archglacier that involved a glacier fight with up to 10 different types of glacier that would have been more complex than what we got, because the plan and the decision was made to make glacier as what they called the gateway boss, which I think we all know, because safe deaths on normal, the ability to toggle mechanics with that. But it just goes to show that there were other designs that never make it to the light of day on that. And I feel like people listening to this podcast might see that this is something we do in our monthly bits, and when we actually give feedback to the pieces of content, it follows this very, very similar path of talking about things that are specific and talking about things that are feasible. We'll always say here, it would be nice to do this, but it's not really that possible in terms of the scope of it, in terms of doing something that's too big, like removing the tick system, for example.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest weaknesses of the RS community in general, separate from the issue of tone, like the next biggest issue is just not really understanding how prioritization works.
Yeah.
And scoping works. Like we have no idea how hard it is to do certain things. And some things are just very hard to do. They don't sound hard, but they are very hard to do. And that's just a fact of a fact of the industry.
Mm.
Right, and it's a question of then, do you want to, have a dev working on something for, a week and a half of programming dev time that's only going to impact a handful of people, or do you want to have that dev working on something that's going to have a wider impact?
Right, like that's just a reality of software development in general.
And so many people don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only have so many hours in the day, and this is another thing that Mod Jack touched on, which I really appreciate, is he brought up that the response when you bring that up to players, the response is just hire more devs. But there's diminishing returns on that.
And did you also catch the point where he said that based on the size of the game, Jagex actually has about double the devs as a similar sized game?
I didn't catch the double part, but yeah, I did catch. He mentioned that it was more. They have a very large live team.
Yeah, well, they have RuneScape, so that could be part of their.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the problem.
But
too.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's really simple. At the end of the day, when it comes to feedback, the devs don't owe you shit. They don't owe you a response. They don't owe you what you think the game should be. They owe you $15 worth of content, and you decide if you're getting that every month.
Yep.
And that's what they owe you. That's the deal, right? Everything else is good on them, right? Like, I mean, it's good if they listen at all. So I don't know, this like entitled mentality. I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's not part of the deal that we all make.
Yeah.
By giving them our money.
Right. And
it's the double-edged sword of Jagex being so open, and they have been so open for such a very long time. Like even back to the very earliest days when like Paul Gower would sit in the Brimhaven pub and just talk to players in-game directly. Like that's always been sort of a part of the game. And like that's good in a lot of ways. It means that we have this close relationship with the devs. It means we can get ideas passed back and forth very well. We can make the game better together. But the flip side of that is you start expecting that. You start demanding that.
Yeah.
Or you can, anyway.
Yeah, and then people will see that and start doing it in a way that's not respectful.
Yeah.
Bunch of entitled little shits. Back in my day, we used to sit in the bar and talk to Andrew Gower over a pipe.
Exactly.
And you know what the fun part about that is? If you went to any of the Rune Fests, and specifically the night before party, you could actually do that.
That's right.
In real life.
Yes.
But making suggestions comes down to identifying what the problem is, explaining why it's a problem, what the potential solution is, why that's the best solution, and the most important, why is this a higher priority than anything else? And if you can do those, you're much more likely to have a successful suggestion than if you just go, like you said, be a keyboard warrior somewhere and post a long rant about a specific piece of content. And I think if there's one thing that people need to take away from that, is that it's this discussion about making those pointed bits of feedback, the what, the why, what's the solution, why is that a good solution, and then why is this higher priority than that? And that's probably the biggest thing that came out of this live stream that people were unaware of. And then there was, of course, the bit on streamer voice, but I don't think we need to talk about that. We already went over that. If you want streamer voice, you go elsewhere. If you want, thought provoking ideas. That's why you listen to RSBANDB Update. So.
Did you say streamer voice or screamer voice?
Hey.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of negativity out there, and it doesn't do anyone. I mean, it doesn't do the person being negative any good for their stress levels and things either. I mean, it's as you said, social media has really brought out the animal in people. It's just like,
oh yeah, and this is RuneScape. It's not even like real world government or something.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. I mean, the things that come up on social media, Twitter and Facebook, and it's just incredible. And we've just got to learn that everyone's we're humans. We've got to be better than that to each other.
Yeah. All right.
At the risk of repeating a stale meme, touch grass.
Yeah, or smoke it. It is a holiday.
Yeah, that too. We are recording this the day after the glorious high holiday.
Oh right,
the high holy day.
All right, and with that, we're moving on to our achievements right now as we start wrapping this up. And I wasn't going to have Zerdones read his own achievement, but you got 120 Constitution on the 19th. Congratulations.
I did. Thank you. Thank you to Jagex for those 15 keys.
We also have Worst Tasker with 99 Strength and Naranja with 99 Construction on the 17th.
Right on. Then moving on, we have Canis Rufus 1 with 120 Archaeology on the 16th. And then we have God Shaman with 99 Invention on the 16th.
And on from that, Fight Caves hit 120 Cooking on April 15th, and Adani with 120 Constitution on April the 14th.
And last but certainly not least, on April 13th, we have Luke Totodile with 120 Summoning and Pop O with 120 Fishing.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right. Pernasius Pick of the Week, a book.
Yeah, this one's by Stephen King. It's called Fairy Tale. It's like Stephen King's known for his horror stories, and this has it's always got that underlying tone of light horror in this one, but it's more a book based on fairy tales where a young school kid, his dad was an alcoholic, and he sort of prayed to God that, if he could get his dad off the booze, that he'd owe him one. And lo and behold, an old friend shows up, takes him to AA, and gets him off it. And this kid sort of later on here's an old man up the street who is the local terror. Everyone's sort of scared of him, and hears him sort of yelling out one day, and he's fallen and broken his leg, so he's gone in and helped him. And it's a lot more serious than they thought, so the kid just volunteers to be his home help. And the guy ends up sort of, in the end, passing away and leaving Charlie his house. And at the back of the house, there's a locked shed, which has a well which leads to another world. And that's where it sort of gets into that fairy tale side. And just really well written, well rounded. He ties in, our old fairy tales into this story, and it's like this is the land where all our fairy tales sort of originated from. And it's just a really great book. And for people, I mean, you don't have to be a Stephen King horror fan to enjoy this one. As I said, light undertones of some horror, but generally just an adventure fantasy book that I can't recommend highly enough.
And from the looks of it, a pretty long one as well. It says the audio. It says the audio is 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
Most Stephen King books are long. He, obviously, being as popular as he is, they don't give him a page limit anymore. Like when he originally wrote The Stand, he had a limit on what he could do. So 20 years later, he released the original unabridged version, which had something like 500 extra pages to the original.
Yeah, that is a doorstopper.
I
I've read
love
it.
that
It's
book.
huge.
I've read it 7 times.
So is it
One of my favorites.
so is it like kind of his take on Fae Pronuncius, or is it about
Well,
like
not
the
no,
realm of
not not
Fae,
not
or
Fae. No, not actually. There's no actual fairy. I mean, there is a giant in it, but the people on the other side are actual humans as well. They
some
are.
like Dark Tower type shit?
Yeah, but it's like it's like another dimension. You go down in this world, and
Yeah.
there's this big city. It ties back to Wizard of Oz. He ties it back to all different types of sort of those old sort of fairy tales, but with a modern twist. And the people in the land are suffering a disease that's coming from when it was a takeover and such. And it's just well written, and it's an enthralling book. What am I? A little over halfway. I got it for Easter, so I'm up to page 300 at the moment, and I'll probably knock it out by the end of the weekend.
Nice. Okay. I'll have to check
Nice.
this out.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's as I said, you don't have to be a horror fan. It's one of those. It's a Stephen King take on fantasy. So yeah, I recommend anyone. If you like to read, check it. I mean, I plow through books quite a bit, so it is it's probably my favorite of this year so far.
All right, Zerdones?
Yeah, I'm shifting gears completely. I have a YouTube video, a shorter one than I usually bring. It's only 45, 47 minutes. Pretend for the moment we didn't discuss this in pre-show. Do you guys remember New World?
Yes,
We
I remember
do,
it
yes.
being framed as an
Bill Paul.
MMO that was going to compete with RS.
And I was so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, so for the listeners who maybe don't remember, New World was an MMO released by Amazon Game Studios, because that's a thing. Released in September of 2021, and I remember when it released, it was huge. It was like the #1 game on Twitch. It was like top 5 on Steam. People could not stop talking about this game. And then gradually, I never really noticed it, but it eventually, I twigged in my brain a couple of months ago that people just sort of stopped talking about it. And I didn't hear people talking about it anymore. And I never knew why. And then I stumbled across this YouTube video, and I watched it, and I didn't wonder why anymore. So there are a lot of problems with New World that this video goes into quite deep detail on. The biggest one is just all of the bugs. And this is a 45-minute video. It's about 2/3 going down all the horrible game-breaking, economy-breaking bugs that were in New World. I won't go through all of them, but some of the ones that I found funniest, the highlights. If you put the game in windowed mode and dragged the window around, you became invincible. Just damage wouldn't apply to you. There were certain weapons that would give damage boosting stat buffs, but they stacked with each other and didn't fall off. So some weapons just became massively, like, infinitely powerful. You had an area of effect healing spell that you could lay down, and it would sort of passively heal you a little bit at a time, sort of like the unicorn familiar in RuneScape. And that's fine, but if you stood in the area of effect and crouched repeatedly, you would heal faster, and you healed too fast to kill. So in PvP matches, you could just park on a control point and become invincible. In order to fix that bug, they made it so that area of effects didn't apply to people who were moving, which meant you could avoid AoE damage by just standing still. And that applied to enemies as well. So if you launched an AoE attack on an enemy and it hadn't noticed you yet, it would just not take damage. You would just waste that AoE completely. or if it was already standing within attack distance, not moving, it just wouldn't take damage from your AoE.
Wow.
Multiple economy breaking, like very simple gold duplication glitches. A couple of times they stopped all wealth transfer in the game, which one of the times they did that introduced a bug that I now can't remember the exact details on, but basically while the wealth transfer was paused, guilds could interact with certain NPCs to do like upkeep missions and then cancel them and get back money that hadn't actually been taken from them and just get infinite money. So it's a wild watch, and the reason I wanted to bring it to people's attention is because I like to consider myself a fairly easygoing guy. There's not a lot that really riles me up. But one of the things that will just make me go absolutely nuclear is when people complain about how Jagex doesn't QA. And, like, if you believe that, watch this video and understand what it looks like when a game either doesn't QA or doesn't listen to their QA team at all. Because it looks a lot more like this than the game we play. Just keep that in mind.
Makes you appreciate the hard work our RuneScape devs do put into it.
Our devs' QA is wonderful and underappreciated. Players have a role in quality assurance, but there is a QA team, and they work hard to make sure that the economy doesn't explode because we tried to fix the economy exploding.
And that's why we don't hear much about New Worlds right now, is because it's just in a tailspin downwards based on this. I remember the promise when that came out. I think it was you, Tanis, and a couple of your other friends who were looking at that and trying the PvP aspect of it out. Are they still playing it?
No.
No, okay. Well, I mean, there you go.
It
Makes
is
sense.
It is apparently still fairly popular. Like, this video is now about a year old, and at the time, I haven't looked at it now, actually I should, but at the time, New World was still averaging about 100,000 players a day on Steam, but that was down from an all-time high of like 1 million.
So
like they've lost 91% of their players. Yeah, okay, so 24-hour peak for New World right now is 21,000 players.
Wow, so that's even down
over the last 7 days, over the last week. Yeah.
And
that's a game you can say is dying.
Yeah. And you know, I think
falling hard.
I think it's interesting to consider because so many people who play RS just play RS as their primary game, right? But if you play other games and RS is the game that you play on the side or it's your secondary game, you're going to have vastly so many different perspectives from various angles. Like, how do the devs talk to their communities? How does CM work? How does QA work is something we talk about with New World.
How does the
here.
update cycle look?
Bingo. And it really just, I think, paints that picture of how RS is just so unique in its own category. So thank you for that pick of the week. What have you been up to this week on RS, Tanis?
Was trying to get one of these challenges. I still have not gotten one.
Oh my god!
Oh really?
I don't understand what the.
Have you been
issue
canceling? Have you been canceling?
Never canceled a task.
Oh wow!
No.
You need some of Shane's RNG, mate.
I haven't touched mine at all. I'm still waiting for.
No, I mean, yeah, you're just general.
Just in general, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Just reach out and rub the belly of Shane's avatar.
There we go.
All right. Anything else, Tanis, aside from your Slayer?
No, that's about it.
Okay, Pernasius.
Just again, a lot of AFKing. It was a difficult week this week with a lot of stuff going on in personal life, but chasing those Jack coins and in the middle of this show, I hit my 77 Jack coins, which is what I needed to unlock everything. So I can actually get back to doing other things. But just mining, I forgot when I did my 25k Animicas, the Light and Dark, and 25k Runite, I also needed Lumite or Luminite. So I've just I'm about, well, actually, there you go. I'm 300 left Luminite to hit my 25k there, and then I can go and smith it all into bars.
Wonderful. And Zerdone's...
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I also got 3 of the 4 new souls for my Slayer Codex. Just been waiting on the Armoured Zombies, or Armoured Phantoms, I think they are, to cool down a bit so I can go and get that one. But that's it.
All right, and Zerdone's obviously 120 Constitution.
Yeah, 120 Constitution. That was sort of an accident. I don't really, no offense, Tanis, but I don't really go for virtual 120s. I don't really see the point. I want content. But this one's just sort of, I mean, combat almost doesn't count. You just sort of get it passively. So
yeah.
But other than that, I've been, the trim grind continues. I was, ever since the announcement, I've been sort of ticking off those that I didn't have. So just this week, I ticked off the Mazcab Reputation.
Ooh. Okay.
Which, yeah, I did a lot of Nemi Forest for that, and that is awful content.
Yeah, it is.
It is not fun at all.
Not fun. I'm so glad to be done.
Let me know if you ever want to go for raids.
Yeah, I do need raids because I want to get my Reaper crew at some point. That's another thing that I did is I went to Raksha and I taught myself Raksha. So I'm officially a dinosaur slayer.
Solo.
10 solo Raksha. 10 solo Raksha kills.
Jesus, I could never get that done.
My first kill took me probably 3 hours. Like not a single 3 hour set kill. Like I wasn't in the instance for 3 hours. But like between dying and all that, it was getting the first one was awful.
I die 3 times. I go right. I quit for today.
and I mean, dying's not really a problem anymore given the death cost changes.
True.
So that update did accomplish that. Despite it being something that the PVM community said they absolutely needed. But once again, I think that one really helped out for everybody at the end of the day.
Well, and the Ring of Death, too, saves me so much in death cost.
There you go.
Because it procs and I just teleport out and I'm fine. You can't even, if it kills you when you're in wars, I think it doesn't actually kill you. I think that's a safe. Yeah, because that happened to me today, actually. I was doing my Reaper at Magister, and like I missed time to surge away from one of his attacks, and he killed me, or he procced my Ring of Death, so I teleported out, and then I died, but then I didn't die. There was some dialogue that I clicked out of, so I don't know what exactly happened, but...
Wonderful.
So very good.
I used to use the home teleport tab for that, just one of the scrolls, and you get hit by poison as the end. You just click teleport home, you die in your house, and you just resurrect outside with no death costs at all.
Oh, that's clever.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just waiting for trim. I am now back to just waiting for Horns of Honor. I have everything else. I got very lucky on the Armored Phantom Soul. Got all 4 of them. Got all the trophies. Just need that BA, and then I got it.
Nice.
Very nice.
As for me, just working on Yak Trek still. I think I'm in the task 40. So I really got to step it up before this thing ends in about 3 weeks from this point. But you know what it is that I took a major distraction period with the Slayer update, and then the quest week. Or not the quest week, before the Easter event. I decided that I was going to stay there for 1 or 2 of the Yak tracks and just do skill and kill with that, when in reality I probably should have just been doing task A on that. But, I feel like that's the same thing whenever Yak track is active. It's always going to be a question of skill and kill and just playing to the Yak track. But I'm not even sure if there's anything else I need at this point or want at this point. cosmetic rewards aside from general completionism, if I'm being 100% honest. So
you don't want capes, the shoulder capes?
I mean, not really, because my capes I'm going to be using are either comp or, a farming cape or an inverted farming cape, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I have my comp colors I use that are seasonal, and then aside from that, there's the inverted capes, which I would very much like Fresh Start to come back at some point so I can finish the unfinished business there and get the archaeology one.
Oh no, they're going to have an inverted Master Quest cape now. No!
And you're going to have to go get that, aren't you?
I will. No. I take it back. 0 out of 5 on this update. Boo.
All right. Well, I think with that, we can call this episode a wrap. So thanks, everybody, for being here, and we'll be back next week for another episode of Update. If you want full episodes delivered automatically to you when they arrive, just subscribe. We're on all the podcast listeners out there: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Pocket Casts, and more. Visit update.show/subscribe and just click on whichever one you prefer. Of course, we also have the video versions on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANB and some nibbles there as well, little clips of the show that we put out midweek. But with that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of RSBANB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
See ya.
Adios.
Bye.